Why isn't this key working? That was the first thing I heard, sharp, annoyed, and way too close to my truck. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, and froze. A woman from the neighborhood stood pressed against my driver's door, twisting a shiny brass key like she was trying to break into a safe. She wasn't inspecting, she wasn't checking, she was actively attempting to open my vehicle. Metal scraped. The lock resisted. She tried harder. "Ma'am," I said slowly, "why are you touching my truck?" She turned with absolute confidence, chin lifted like she was delivering a verdict. "Your vehicle is supposed to unlock with our community master key," she said. "It didn't. That means you're out of compliance." I blinked. "That's my private truck. There is no master key." She ignored that. "Refusal to cooperate is suspicious," she added, as if reading from a rulebook only she had access to. "And suspicious behavior must be reported." Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone, dialed with dramatic urgency, and gestured toward me like she was identifying a suspect. "Operator, I'm dealing with a non-compliant resident who's blocking a mandatory vehicle check." My coffee went cold in my hand. But she had no idea who she was reporting, or how fast her plan was about to fall apart. Stick around because this story only gets wilder. And if you want more unbelievable real-life stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. She didn't hang up the phone. She just stood there frozen in place, staring at me as I'd just triggered a national emergency. That was Karen. Karen Dale, the self-appointed rule enforcer of our neighborhood, not elected, not trained. Just very confident and very loud. And me? My name is Michael Rains. I keep to myself. I drink my coffee. I mind my business. That morning, none of that mattered. Karen pointed her clipboard at me like it was a weapon. "Do not move," she ordered. "You're already escalating the situation." "For standing on my own porch?" I asked. She didn't blink. "This is an active compliance check, Mr. Rains." I took a slow breath. "On my truck. Without my permission." She talked right over me, writing furiously. "Refusal to accept master key protocols, interference with HOA procedures, and," she glanced up at me, "defensive posture." I looked down. I was holding a coffee mug. "That posture goes into the report," she repeated, clicking her pen like she enjoyed the sound of authority. I tried to stay calm. Karen thrived on reactions, and the last thing I wanted was to give her one. She stepped back, adjusting her blouse with military precision. "The responding officer will handle the rest." I frowned. "Officer?" she nodded proudly. "Yes, I called for backup." And the moment I saw the patrol car turn the corner, I realized Karen had absolutely no idea who she had dragged into this mess. The patrol car rolled onto the street with its lights off, moving slowly, scanning. Karen straightened instantly, like a soldier preparing for inspection. She tucked her clipboard to her chest and lifted her chin. "This is it," she whispered. "Now you'll learn." But something felt wrong. The officer inside wasn't rushing. He wasn't stepping out. He wasn't even reaching for the radio. He was just watching. Karen raised her hand and waved him over, the same way you'd wave at a waiter you didn't tip. "Officer, over here. This is the non-compliant resident." The car didn't move. Instead, the officer leaned forward, both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on us. He knew exactly who he was looking at. And I could see him deciding whether to laugh, step out, or just drive away and pretend he saw nothing. Karen didn't notice. She kept waving louder now. "Officer, this man refused an HOA vehicle inspection. He is actively resisting protocol." The officer finally opened the door, slowly. Too slow. Not the timing of someone responding to a crisis. The timing of someone walking into a joke they didn't want to be part of. He stepped out. Closed the door, looked at me, then at Karen, then back at me. Karen clapped her hands once. "Good, handle him." The officer lifted one eyebrow, just one, like he was silently asking me, "Is she serious?" She was. Oh, she really was. But what the officer said next was the first sign that this situation was about to flip completely upside down. The officer walked toward us with that slow, measured pace cops use when they're trying not to laugh. Karen mistook it for authority and immediately stepped in front of him like she was briefing a federal task force. "Officer, thank you for responding. This resident is refusing mandatory access to his vehicle. He's hiding something." I opened my mouth, but the officer held up a hand toward her, not me. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "explain to me exactly what you think is happening." Karen thrust her clipboard at him. This truck failed the HOA master key test. That means there might be unauthorized materials inside. I attempted entry, but he obstructed me. The officer stared at her. You attempted entry? Yes, she said proudly, for community safety. He blinked once, twice. Those long, slow blinks people do when their brain is buffering. And you believe, he said carefully, that this key should open his truck. It must, she insisted. It opens every compliant vehicle. The officer looked down at the key she held, cheap, shiny, clearly bought online. Then he looked at the scratch marks on my door. I watched the moment disbelief left his face and concern replaced it. Not a concern for me, concern for her, he exhaled softly. Ma'am, you can't do that. You can't try to open someone's vehicle. Karen gasped as he'd betrayed her. Are you refusing to enforce the rules? He didn't answer. He just turned to me, eyes sharp now. And the question he asked me next changed the entire tone of the situation. The officer stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough that Karen had to lean in to hear. Sir, he said, did she actually try to unlock your truck? Before I could answer, Karen jumped in. Of course I did. It's my responsibility. If he won't comply, someone has to protect this neighborhood. The officer didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on mine. Did she put that key into your lock? He repeated. I nodded once. Multiple times. He tightened his jaw. That was all he needed to hear, and Karen knew it. She rushed between us like a human firewall. Officer, there's no need to escalate. I was pursuing standard safety protocol. If he had allowed the inspection, none of this would have happened. Protocol? He echoed. Which protocol exactly? She lifted her clipboard like it held the Declaration of Independence. HOA Regulation 4.17b, Emergency Access Requirement. The officer blinked. There's no such regulation. Karen's face twitched. Well, it's implied. The officer sighed, slow, patient, exhausted. Ma'am, you cannot touch someone's vehicle without permission. You definitely cannot try to unlock it, and calling this man non-compliant doesn't change the law. Karen's mouth fell open. You're siding with him? No, he said. I'm siding with reality. She clutched the key tighter, like losing an argument physically hurt her. This is unbelievable. I'm trying to keep this neighborhood safe. The officer finally turned to me again. Sir, do you want to press a complaint? Karen froze. And before I could even breathe, she did something that stunned both of us and sent this situation into a whole new level of chaos. Press a complaint, Karen repeated as if the officer had insulted her entire bloodline. Against me for doing my job. The officer didn't answer. He didn't need to. Karen stepped back, her eyes darting between us. Panic, anger, embarrassment, all mixing. Then she did something so sudden the officer instinctively reached for his belt. She raised the brass key high in the air and shouted, "This is evidence." I was conducting an inspection and he interfered. "Ma'am," the officer warned, "put the key down." "No," she snapped. "I'm not the criminal here." She paced in a tight circle like she was building momentum, waving the key like a victory flag. "He refused access. He blocked a safety check. He's hiding something and you're letting him get away with it." "Karen," I said quietly, "you need to calm down." She whipped toward me, finger trembling as she pointed. "Don't tell me to calm down. You're the reason this neighborhood has issues." The officer stepped forward. "That's enough. Put the key down and step away from the vehicle." But she didn't step away. She stepped closer. She marched right up to my truck and slammed her palm on the window. "If the master key won't open it, then we'll escalate. I'll request a full vehicle audit." The officer's expression darkened. "A what?" "A full audit," she repeated proudly. "I'll bring the board, I'll bring paperwork, I'll bring whatever it takes. He won't dodge this." She truly believed she had the power. But before she could take another step, the officer said one sentence that finally cracked the first layer of her confidence. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "before you talk about audits and boards, do you even know who you're dealing with?" Karen froze, not completely, but enough that her hand tightened around her clipboard. "What do you mean?" she snapped. "He's just another resident refusing to follow HOA protocol." The officer glanced at my truck, then at me, then back at her. His tone shifted, firmer, more controlled. "You made a call, you asked for law enforcement. And now that we're here, you need to understand something important." Karen's voice wavered for the first time. I understand everything. I always understand everything." But she didn't, and the officer could see it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You tried to open a vehicle you don't own. You attempted entry with a key that isn't yours. You reported the owner as suspicious. And now you're threatening to escalate? It's not a threat, she insisted. It's procedure. Procedure you invented, he replied. Her jaw clenched, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Look, officer, you weren't here. You didn't see how defensive he was. People don't act like that unless they're hiding something. The officer looked straight at me longer than before, a knowing look. A look that said more than words could. Karen noticed. Her head snapped between us. Wait, why are you looking at him like that? What is going on? The officer exhaled and turned to her fully. Ma'am, there's something you need to know about Mr. Rains. Karen blinked. About him? And just before he said it, another car entered the street, one that changed the tone of the entire confrontation. The words were right on the officer's lips when a second vehicle turned into the neighborhood, slow, deliberate, unmarked. Karen's eyes widened. Who is that? She demanded. The officer stepped back slightly, his posture shifting into something more formal. Ma'am, stay where you are. The car rolled to a stop behind the patrol cruiser. The engine shut off. A tall man stepped out, dark uniform pants, plain black shirt, radio clipped to his belt. No lights, no logos, no smile. Karen stiffened. Why is he here? I only requested one officer. The first officer didn't answer. His focus was now entirely on the new arrival. The man in black walked toward us with a steady, silent confidence. He didn't look at Karen. He didn't look at the truck. He looked directly at me. Morning, he said, nodding once. I returned the nod. Morning. Karen snapped her fingers at him like she was calling for service. Excuse me. Since you're clearly in law enforcement, I need you to understand. This resident is refusing an HOA vehicle inspection. He's hiding something in that truck, and nobody seems to be taking my report seriously. The man finally looked at her slowly. His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. Is that so? He said. Yes, she insisted, and he's being combative. I want him documented. He shifted his attention back to me. Is any of that true? I couldn't help the small breath of disbelief that left my mouth. Not even remotely. Karen threw her hands up. Oh, please, you have no idea what he's capable of. The man in black raised one eyebrow. And then he said a single sentence that made Karen's face drain of every shade of confidence she had left. The man in black didn't raise his voice. He didn't take a step forward. He just looked at Karen with a calm, steady expression and said, Ma'am, are you aware who you're accusing? Everything stopped. Karen blinked. Excuse me? The officer from the patrol car folded his arms, watching her like she was about to walk into a wall she didn't know existed. The man in black continued, Before you make any more claims, I want you to be certain you understand the situation. Karen laughed nervously, too high, too tight. I understand perfectly. He refused an HOA inspection. He blocked safety procedures, and he was defensive from the start. The man exchanged a glance with the officer, one of those is she serious? Glances. Then he asked, Did you try to access his vehicle without permission? Karen didn't even hesitate. Of course I did, that's my job. No, he said calmly, it isn't. She froze again. That one sentence stunned her more than any argument I'd made all morning. He stepped slightly to the side, giving her a clear view of the scratches she'd made on my truck. You attempted forced access. You filed a false report. And you escalated without cause. Karen swallowed hard. W8, I wasn't filing a false report. I was protecting the neighborhood. The man tilted his head. By breaking into someone's truck, her confidence wavered visibly. For the first time, she stepped back. And then, as her voice shook, she asked the question that would finally expose the truth she had been blindly walking toward. Karen's voice dropped to a thin whisper. Who is he? The man in black didn't answer right away. He let the question hang in the air, heavy enough that even the breeze seemed to pause. The patrol officer shifted his weight, arms still crossed, watching her sink deeper into the mess she'd made. Karen's eyes darted between the two of them, searching for reassurance, for backup, for anything that made sense. She found none. Why aren't you answering? She demanded, but her voice cracked halfway through. The man glanced at me. I gave him a small nod. He turned back to her. Ma'am, he said quietly, the man you've been accusing, the one you tried to break into, the one you reported as suspicious. His voice steadied, sharpening just enough for the words to land like a verdict. He's the county sheriff. Corinne's mouth fell open, but no sound came out, just a stunned, breathless silence. She shook her head. No, no, that's impossible. He's just a resident, the officer finished for her. Yes, and also the sheriff. Corinne took another step back, almost tripping over her own clipboard. But he didn't tell me. The man in black raised an eyebrow. Why would he? You're not law enforcement. And you're certainly not authorized to conduct vehicle checks. Her face drained of color. I didn't know. You should have asked, he said simply. Corinne looked at me, really looked, for the first time all morning. All that fake authority, that loud confidence, gone. And all that remained was shock. But even after learning the truth, Corinne wasn't finished. Her next move was desperate, reckless, and unbelievably bold. Corinne wasn't breathing, at least not normally. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven bursts as she backed away from all three of us. The clipboard shook in her hands. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered, but it sounded more like she was trying to convince herself. Ma'am, the officer said calmly, you attempted to access the sheriff's vehicle without permission. That's extremely serious. Corinne's eyes snapped wide open. No, 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 you don't understand. My authority overrides that. I'm part of the Community Protection Board. The man in black frowned. There is no Community Protection Board. Corinne's voice exploded out of her. Yes, there is. I created it last month. The silence that followed was painful. She pointed wildly at me. He still has to answer for noncompliance. Sheriff or not, the rules apply to everyone, the officer sighed. Ma'am, your rules don't exist. They do, she yelled, slamming her clipboard against her palm. And if none of you will enforce them, then I'll do it myself. Before any of us could react, she stormed toward my truck, dropped to her knees, and pulled something from her bag. A clamp, a bright yellow wheel clamp. She snapped it open with both hands, positioning it like she'd practiced for this moment her entire life. Corinne, I warned, don't do it. She didn't even look up. I am issuing an emergency immobilization order. The man in black stepped forward fast. Ma'am, put that down right now. But she locked it onto the wheel in one violent motion and stood up with triumphant breathlessness. There, she said. Now he can't escape. But she didn't realize what she'd just done, and the consequences were about to hit her harder than anything she'd expected. The moment that the clamp snapped shut, the silence was so sharp it felt physical. Even Corinne froze, her victory smile flickering like a light about to burn out. The man in black exhaled slowly. Ma'am, do you understand what you've just done? Corinne lifted her chin. I enforced the rules, someone had to. No, he said, stepping closer. You tampered with a sheriff's vehicle. You disabled an official asset. Her eyes twitched. It's just a truck. It's a law enforcement vehicle, he cut in firmly. Even out of uniform, even at home, that clamp just turned this into a criminal act. Her clipboard slipped from her hands, hitting the pavement with a hollow crack. She didn't pick it up. No, no, that can't be, she muttered. I didn't know. I was just trying to keep order. This neighborhood needs structure. Structure, the officer echoed. Not unlawful detainment. Corinne's mouth trembled. Detainment? I didn't detain anyone. You immobilized the sheriff's vehicle, he said. That's the definition. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the side mirror of a nearby SUV just to stay upright. I didn't think, I was only trying to. But she didn't finish the sentence, because even she no longer believed it. The man in black finally spoke, voice steady and final. Ma'am, we're past warnings. You need to step back and keep your hands where we can see them. Corinne staggered backward, shaking her head, whispering the same words over and over. I didn't know. But the real fallout hadn't even started yet. The HOA board was about to arrive, and they were far less forgiving than the officers. 2 SUVs rolled into the neighborhood, quiet, deliberate, official-looking. The HOA board, not the imaginary board Corinne had been clinging to, the real one. 3 members stepped out, all wearing the same stunned expression when they saw the clamp on my truck and Corinne standing beside it like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Corinne, the president said, voice tight, what on earth have you done? Corinne tried to speak, but only a broken string of half-words came out. I was enforcing, I thought. The president held up a hand. No, not another word. He turned to the officers. We had no idea she was doing any of this. She has no authority to conduct inspections, create rules, or whatever this is. The man in black nodded. She disabled a law enforcement vehicle. That alone is a serious offense. Karen finally stepped forward, tears welling, not the dramatic ones she used when she wanted power. Real ones, fear, not fury. I wasn't trying to break the law, she said. I was trying to make people follow it. I thought I was helping. The president's voice softened, but only slightly. Karen, leadership isn't about control. And it definitely isn't about creating rules no one asked for. She looked at me, eyes red. I didn't know you were. I told you, I said quietly. You didn't ask. The officers handled the paperwork. The board removed her from every position she'd invented. And for the first time since moving there, the street felt calm. A week later, my truck was repaired, the clamp gone, the scratches polished out. Karen moved out shortly after. And the neighborhood? It finally learned the difference between authority and obsession. If you enjoyed this unbelievable true story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more high-stakes real-life stories, and hit the notification bell so you never miss what happens next.